meditate, let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach and what you turn the other cheek. Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love?
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Time to go deep. So pleased to have with us today in studio, on the phone, and live on YouTube.com. Just search KBLA 1580. You'll see us live. Joining us this morning, the Executive Director of the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations. He's also on the board of the Directors of the International Association of Official Human Rights Agencies. And he's got a lot of accolades in his bio, but he was also an advisor and a member of the 2010 Obama administration's delegation to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Robin Toma, welcome.
Thank you, Dominique. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know it's a busy, busy time, and we've just now sort of wrapped up, even though it's an ongoing initiative, LA versus hate.
Right. We just completed our United Against Hate Week, which is our third annual one, which is really to ramp up the whole community's engagement in the fight against hate crimes and hate incidents and all kinds of bias-motivated hostilities here in LA County.
Wow, I didn't realize it was the third already.
Time.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was already the third annual. That's great.
Yes, it is. It really generates a lot of new partnerships, and it just every time it expands and becomes more engaged by more communities around the county. So we'd love to see it build.
We're also welcoming in studio an activist. She 20 years ago created the South LA-based nonprofit LA Commons, looking towards a vision where everyone has access and freedom to express themselves culturally and tap into the power that creativity provides. LA Commons, of course, playing a role as a facilitator of local engagements in arts, culture, and other things like health, transportation, education, and much, much more. Karen Mack, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to talk about this very important topic at this moment in our history, and to be here with my dear colleague, Robin Toma, who really initiated this amazing initiative, and we're so glad to be a part of it. And recognizing that art and culture plays such a critical role in bringing people together. That is the opportunity with the arts, is that interaction that is possible when people are given a window into others really lays the foundation for love and not hate.
You must be really happy about the Prop 28 passing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because, I think that's one thing, like really thinking about young people as the leaders in this process. I have a 17-year-old now. It's amazing for me to say that. And, just the love in that generation, how tolerant they are, how open they are to others in so many ways. They will lead us, and I think to integrate that throughout the K through 12 curriculum is, the arts and understanding is, that's genius, and we're so blessed that it passed.
Yeah, handily. Robin, I heard you say you're also glad, as am I. We do have time,
yes,
which is good, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to hate. And I want to start with, your definition. Let's talk about, when we say we're united against hate, what are we uniting against? I mean, it used to seem so simple. Racism is bad, hate is bad, but now people are, I think, confusing the issue with this sort of anti-wokeness agenda, but also with sort of selective focus on what who is responsible and what constitutes hate. So how do you define it?
Well, that's a good question, Dominique, to start our conversation. Hate is a word that can mean a lot of things to different people, but it's been part of our work for over 40 years, ever since the beginning of the 80s. And the focus has been on any act that's motivated by bias, by prejudice against someone's race, ethnicity, national origin, their religion, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their disability, everything that's protected under the California laws. And that's been something that we have been at the forefront of really tracking, because, if you don't really look at anything and track what's happening, you're not really saying it's very important. So we've been actually the ones earliest in the history, maybe of the nation, of tracking hate crimes. But we know, hate and bias-motivated acts of hostility have long predated this. So when we say hate, we're really talking about when people are targeting people because of long protected characteristics that they've been often disadvantaged and demeaned and discriminated against because of those characteristics. We're not talking about, just the simple act of not liking something a lot, hating it. And it's certainly something that we think is really part of our human history, that until very recently, and really until, we started to, as a government, say it's not okay to just go off on somebody else with hostility, with racism, and that as long as it doesn't reach the level of a hate crime, it's not actionable, or it doesn't appear to be actionable. We're saying, no, we're changing that. We want people to report that. We want to get people together to respond to it. We want to look at the source of it and make sure that where it's coming from can be changed, so we don't just simply accept it as being a normal part of our human interactions and our institutions and society. So this is a big culture shift to get people to, for the first time, report it and actually receive free help to take action against, not only for the person who's affected, but for the person who may be carrying out the act of hate, to be able to address that as well. So this is a huge undertaking for us, but we think it's well worth it, because just staying within the realm of hate crime has been too limited.
Yes. We're going to continue this conversation. How can they report it? I also want to talk about what a protected class means, because I've had people call me and say, we need to make black people a protected class, which theoretically we are, but sure doesn't feel like it. We're talking with Robin Toma and Karen Mack, and you, if you want to get in on it, 800-920-1580. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
Courage is contagious. We're KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour, where KBLA's very own Lynn Richardson was a keynote speaker. Here's what Lynn had to say when asked what the top 3 tips were for someone beginning their journey to financial freedom.
The first one would definitely absolutely be to write what it is that you want. The things that I wrote when I was broke, down, under the ground, didn't know how I was going to make it, are happening today. And they're actually bigger than I ever thought. The dreams that I had, it didn't seem possible, but I had the wherewithal to write it. Thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through your fingertips. So when you see what it is that you want, it becomes more real. The second thing is to speak what you seek until you see what you say. Get rid of haters, naysayers, blockers, and crab barrel leg pullers. Don't get mad at them. Just detach and find your crew. And the third thing is to get started at JP Morgan Chase. And get all of those accounts that you need to save, to spend, and to pay your bills.
The Institute for Diversity Certification is all about the 3 Ds: dedication, determination, and discipline. Learn more about our globally recognized diversity certification program today by calling 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192, or visit diversitycertification.org. As the #1 organization for certified diversity professionals and also certified diversity executive credentials, diversitycertification.org will provide an opportunity for you to demonstrate dedication to the field, determination to make progress, and more discipline to your process. Go today and learn more about the diversity certification system. Call 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192. Or go to diversitycertification.org. That's diversitycertification.org, the standard of excellence, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Smooth skin begins with hydrating ingredients. Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion nourishes your skin with all-day hydration for deeply moisturized results that give you confidence like buttery soft shoulders like and visibly smooth skin like. Quench your skin with nourishing moisture from Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion. Try Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash too and get skin your face will envy.
It's pro time because at Lowe's, it's Provember. Save big with inventory you can count on, like Flex products or DeWalt power tools starting at just $99. Plus, Lowe's MVPs members earn up to 3 times bonus points per dollar on select items. Save all Provember long. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. MVP's Pro Rewards Program terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/L/Pro Loyalty terms. Subject to change. Prices valid from 10/17/22 to 2/3/23 or until supplies last. Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I do thank you, and I thank you for waking up with Robin Toma, the Executive Director of the LA County Commission on Human Relations, and Karen Mack, founder of LA Commons. So we were talking about, what is hate, and you mentioned, Robin, this idea that, we're not just now waiting for you to actually be lynched or attacked, but if you're yelled at or encroached on in any way that indicates bias based on your gender, your ethnicity, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, and more, then that should be reported. So before we get off into all these other questions that I have for you guys, this has been a big thing for you guys, is getting people to come forward, and not just because folks are scared, but they don't know what to do. So what do I do if something like that happens to me?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Dominique. So we've tried to make it really easy for anyone to report any act of hate they experience, and that can include a hate crime. We've actually picked up more acts of hate and hate crime than we knew about based with this new program, LA versus Hate. So we just ask you to call 211, which is you can call any time of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is available to speak with a live person who's going to help you to take down the information and then really figure out how we can address whatever has happened to you and provide you free assistance, whether it's counseling, whether it's being connected to community-based organizations that can advocate for you and help you advocate for what you experienced and address the business, school, city, whatever the entity is that is either complicit in the act or can do something about it directly. We want to help you. So this is something that we've seen, and we've helped so many people in our county at this point. It's over 1,600 people have called in and reported hate to 211. And you can also go online, by the way, if you don't feel like making a phone call. You can go on to laversushate.org, which we know that a lot of folks prefer doing as well, and you can fill out a form online. But all of that then leads to the ability for us to know about what's happened, and that's huge, because then once we know, we can reach out to you and talk about how we can help. And you can be a voice and advocate for yourself in really educating others and doing something about what you experience, not just simply accepting it.
Right, which is one of the reasons we know where right now we've seen a surge, right? We've seen a surge nationwide, and I was really sad to see that California was leading the charge in the perpetration of hate crimes, and African Americans continue to be the top targets, even though we have seen an uptick in API hate and LGBTQ plus, is my understanding, and anti-Semitic attacks as well.
Yes, I think this is in part a result of, a real shift in our environment that, I think it's huge when the president of the country is speaking in terms that are so blatantly racist. And I'm going back, of course, to the Trump administration, where he launched his campaign with an anti-Mexican, diatribe. And it's that kind of continuing racism that he openly expressed towards people from other countries, towards people of other religions, that really seem to give permission to a lot of folks to move to really look towards their worst angels, to really start to allow their worst instincts to really be expressed. And we started to see much more of a rise in hate. It was actually already increasing somewhat before that, but really has been consistently increasing every single year since that time. I think there's been a lot of demons unleashed and encouragement in people's worst behaviors that unfortunately is still we're still battling. But I also think that, to be honest, we do have a much more reporting going on, and that's not just us, but a lot of folks have been really encouraging reporting of hate. And I think that's also part of the rise in hate that we're seeing, the reported hate crimes.
Having a more accurate picture of what's actually going on. Yeah.
I want to just jump in here and just talk. I mean, anti-Black racism is just a national phenomenon and, a global phenomenon. I've been to Brazil and other places where it just goes deep. And much of that, I think, goes back to the slave trade and colonization, and I think it's so deep. The stories that we hear about American history and just the treatment of Black people. I was just listening to a report. There's a new book about World War II and Black soldiers and how horribly they were treated, as one example. And so it's kind of built into the fabric of our country. And so, the challenge is really countering that, force. The other piece, I think, that's happening right now is just people are very afraid. We're in this time of tremendous dissonance. Everything seems to be falling apart around us. We've got a global pandemic, the economy is challenging, et cetera, et cetera. And this kind of, these challenges in our society, which started before Trump, just, I think, not to mention the demographic shifts, which are obvious and, really unnerve, the ruling class, so to speak. I think that has been one of the things that's driving, this increase in hate as well.
It's interesting you say that about the global piece because, as you know, the U.S. men's soccer team has made it into the, big round in the World Cup. And someone asked Tyler Adams, the captain of the team, an African American, it was an Iranian journalist who called him out for saying Iran instead of Iran, but also said, how can you, represent, basically what he's saying, how can you represent a racist country and call out other people for their human rights problems when you are a Black player representing a country that still has so much racism? And I mean, it's a fair point. I love the way he handled it in that he said he apologized for pronouncing the country wrong, corrected himself, but he said there's hate everywhere. And I don't think that was a deflection. I think it was a reference to exactly what you're saying. You're talking about a global system of white supremacy that exists as much in Brazil, as much in the UK as it does in the United States. Not to excuse it, but say we have to have a bigger vision and understanding. That said, though, Robin, as African Americans, it does feel like we're under attack in a special way. And I think it causes confusion that creates more problems in terms of bringing unity and helping understanding. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. You heard me say, someone called and said we should make Black people a protected class. And I said we are a protected class. And she argued with me. And I can understand why. A lot of people were angry when the anti-hate bill passed, when Biden passed that, because it was labeled the Asian American or whatever the official title is. And people felt like everyone's only focusing on hate against Asian Americans. Well, I kept saying it's an anti-hate bill that provides resources for anybody who has been the victim of hate. But so much of this has to do with the narrative and how things are placed. And even during the LA mayor's race, the sheriff said black people are the perpetrators of hate crimes against Asian Americans. And that's not what the data show. And so we're constantly cast as perpetrators rather than victims. And so I can understand why people don't feel like we're a protected class, don't feel like we're included in that anti-hate crimes bill, and feel like when people start targeting hate, they also target us even though we're the victims.
Right, and I completely understand why that people would feel that way, because there's just been far too long the history of this nation, of the world, as you talked about, both of you, where white supremacy has been the norm. And so that white nationalism, that kind of racial supremacy that has been embedded in many of the laws and the policies and practices of our nation, everything from the way redlining happened in housing, the way that people were completely just lied to and denied the redress they were entitled to after the Civil War. There's just so many places in which, and communities just their land seized, right, using governmental tools. I was just reading about that in the LA Times regarding Palm Springs and the way communities of color were completely dispossessed of their property. That has been true not only in the United States but around the world. And it is something that I think we're finally in a point, because of the tremendous community uprising in response to George Floyd's killing. It really opened up just a long exploration of the history that we've known about, but has not been understood in a sort of terms of popular culture. So I do think that there's understandably a feeling that there is neglect, there is a failure to address hate. And prejudice and discrimination, institutional systemic discrimination against blacks, against African Americans in this country. And I think that that's actually one of the areas where I think for the first time there's some serious discussions around redress. And reparations.
Yeah. But I'm talking about specifically in the context of anti-hate initiatives, and we've got news, traffic, and sports here. But maybe we can talk about this after that. I think it's even more than neglect. I think it's a feeling of being under attack. And even though this may sound ridiculous to you, from where I sit, I understand it. The whole conversation about Kyrie Irving or Ye. It exacerbates this because the former president of the United States can call places ish-hole countries. He can insult, as you mentioned, referenced earlier, Robin, an entire nation of people, and there's no consequences. But if Ye says something stupid on social media, he's unbanked. And so it feels like there's a different standard for black people than for everybody else in this anti-hate space. And that's what I would like to address when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Glad you could join us this morning. I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In New York City, its African-American mayor, Eric Adams, is facing backlash for his plan to get more people with mental illness off the streets and out of the subway system. The mayor is now directing first responders to send the mentally ill to hospitals, whether they want to or not. The head of the New York Civil Liberties Union, Donna Lieberman, accuses Adams of what she calls playing fast and loose with the legal rights of New Yorkers. Also in New York, its state attorney general, African-American Letitia James, has filed a lawsuit against a nursing home located in Orleans County. The AG claims the owners of Comprehensive at Orleans LLC, doing business as the Villages of Orleans Health and Rehabilitation Center, were involved in fraud. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Vehicle stalled in West Covina was in the center divider 10 westbound at Grand Avenue. They're running a traffic break to clear things up, and traffic a mess starting at Holt Avenue now. In Irwindale, got the crash on the shoulder 210 westbound of Vernon Avenue, adding to a slow drive starting back at the 57 freeway. And in Fullerton, got a vehicle stalled on the 91 westbound for Magnolia Avenue. That's blocking the left-hand lane, causing delays from Brookhurst Street. Got a big rig stalled in Mission Viejo on the 5 south of Paso Parkway. That's in the right-hand lane, and CHP's on the way to try to get them to the shoulder.
Net Spend All Access. Get the mobile banking account with perks that add up. Banking services provided by and account established by Pathward N.A. Member FDIC. Deposit account opening is subject to registration and ID verification. Terms and costs apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC is on the doorstep of making their first appearance in the 9-year history of the Division I college football playoffs. The 11-1 Trojans moved up to number 4 in this week's playoff ranking. All the Trojans have to do is beat Utah on Friday in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game in Vegas. The 3 teams above the Trojans, Georgia, Michigan, and Texas Christian. More good news for the Trojans. Sophomore quarterback Khalid Williams has emerged as the frontrunner for the Heisman Trophy Award. Norman Powell scored 22 of his 32 points in the fourth quarter to spark the Clippers to a 118-112 win at Portland. The Lakers play Portland tonight at Crypto.com. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week, LA County Department of Children and Family Services. LA County Department of Children and Family Services promotes child safety and well-being by partnering with communities to strengthen family. Congratulations, LA County DCFS.
Bring in the new year with Cat Williams. He's coming to Ontario in the Toyota Arena December 30th and in Los Angeles in the Microsoft Theater December 31st.
I don't know what I'm going to do about this light bill. Just hit the blunt one time and see if it don't change your perception of what's important in your life. I don't know what I'm going to do about this life. Them blunts. I got 12 candles. I've been waiting to burn them.
He's back with an all-new show. It's the award-winning comedian, Cat Williams.
Just so you knew they was lying, they said some next that don't even make mathematical sense. They said there's a chicken wing shortage, but we got plenty thighs.
Cat Williams with his special guests, Mark Curry, Tommy Davidson, Tony Roberts, Daphne Springs, and Pretty Ricky. In Ontario, get tickets at Ticketmaster. In Los Angeles at AXS.com. Bring in the new year with Cat Williams.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
Looking for legitimate political discourse without the bear spray? Tune in and speak out. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm honored to have with us today the Executive Director of the LA County Commission on Human Relations, Robin Toma, who I've actually known for many years, and Karen Mack, the founder of LA Comments, who I just met. So it's a great morning around here. Look, I threw out before news, traffic, and sports, Robin, this idea of how black people are treated, particularly around hate. And it's really front and center right now because of the conversation about anti-Semitism from Ye, from Kyrie Irving. We see Kyrie Irving say, I'm sorry, gives $500,000 to organizations including the ADL, and is still on suspension. Meanwhile, Jerry Jones, who owns a whole NFL team, has been spewing hate for decades and no consequences. The former president of the United States meets with a known white supremacist, Nick Fuentes. No consequences, lots of excuses. And so it feels like there is a double standard when it comes to hate, particularly anti-blackness versus anti-anybody else, the responses and the consequences.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is absolutely right, Dominique. There is a double standard, and it's long existed, and that's reflective of the institutional and systemic racism in our culture. And I think that's, part of the things that we're battling are things like confirmation bias, where people are going to focus on what reinforces pre-existing notions they have of people, of anything, but particularly of people. And it's going to let them filter out and ignore those that information that's to the contrary, that's different than what their stereotype and preconceived notions will tell them. That's a big challenge because we've had such a long legacy and history of racism that has been reflected in so many ways in the way the media has covered things, and then that in turn starts to perpetuate perceptions of people that are at odds with the facts. We looked at the very question of whether, because of this perception that was out there about African Americans being the leading perpetrators of attacks on Asians during the pandemic, we looked at that very issue, and you pointed out, and I'm glad you knew that when we looked at the data, it was whites that were the largest, the plurality of racial group that was the suspects in hate crimes against Asians here in LA County. And so that is, one of the points that we made, and to counter this kind of perception that's out there. And so, it's a battle against not only people's ignorance, but it's also against these the implicit biases as well as confirmation bias habits that are part of the way we think as a human society. So I think it really means, though, that we need to do more of the work that we've been doing to really change our culture and the exposure and the connections to people of diverse groups. For a long time, the only time you would see African Americans and other minorities was in very stereotypical roles in movies and television, and that's starting to change. And I think that's going to start to see its effect in and we already see it in the newer generations. The newer generations don't have the kind of built-in biases that are as baked in and as negative as we have seen in the past. And there, in fact, is a great deal of solidarity, a great deal of empathy. I saw so much, both Asians coming out to support Black Lives Matter protests after George Floyd, and I also saw African Americans leading demonstrations against anti-Asian hate. So I know that there is a tremendous amount of solidarity that exists in the community level, a great amount of support and understanding. But when we talk about overall and the power structures, a lot of it is still, influenced by the long history of racism and bigotry that has been baked into our culture and our system.
Karen Mack, you have an anti-blackness initiative. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we've been part of a group in South LA for many years called Building Healthy Communities South LA, and one of the things that's coming out of that is an anti-black racism curriculum. The group is really focused on, over the 10 years, it's an initiative that was funded by the California Endowment for 10 years, addressing health issues in South LA. And what we all recognized was that you can't really address poor outcomes in a black community unless you address anti-black racism, because the systems, the racism is so deeply embedded in the systems that it's very difficult to move the needle. So the curriculum is amazing because it really does unpack the history on multiple levels, looking at, just where racism came from, starting with slavery, moving through the history, and then focusing on, interventions and, some of this bias changing the biases to actually move people past anti-blackness. But we all are colonized, as I like to say. So it's very challenging, even as a Black person, to move past these biases that are so deeply embedded. And so, that work, we're hoping to launch a partnership with LA County actually to begin to implement this curriculum broadly and then more deeply within departments and agencies. So.
And I know, Rob and Toma, I know that the Commission on Human Relations for the county, which is your agency, does partner with a lot of community-based organizations and sort of neighborhood initiatives. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so thanks for asking me about that, Dominique. I mean, we realize that the way change is going to happen really relies on engaging so many of our leaders in our communities. And so, there's so many great organizations like Karen's that are doing work to address racism and all forms of prejudice in their communities. And what we want to do is to really engage them in a network. And Karen's organization is part of our Rapid Response Network, LA versus Hate, where we are not just, when people report hate, we're not just saying, thank you very much, look for our analysis later on and just trust that this will make a difference. We're actually directly saying to them, how can we help you? Do you know about these organizations that we partner with who can help you advocate against the hate that you experienced? And we engage in that work directly. So, like, for example, we are right now involved in a case of a bullying case where a young African-American kid broke his arm being bullied on the playground. And we connected him with an organization that has been providing legal assistance with him, his parents, against the school to really address how they let this happen and to have a much better response to it than they did. And that's the kind of thing that it goes beyond, for us, just the individual incident, but it opens it up to how can we really address where this is coming from and make sure this is less likely to happen to other people, and what more robust steps can be taken to address the hate and the bullying that may be happening in a given school. So that's one example, and we've done this with other cases as well. But we also address in housing. People are getting experiencing hate in where they live, and so partnering with community-based organizations and other government agencies, we're able to mobilize and really change the way landlords and owners of apartments and homeowners understand what their obligations are to create communities that are free from hate and prejudice. And so that community network is so important to us. And I'm really pleased to say that the Board of Supervisors, LA County government leadership, supported it in recent actions to really increase the funding for that. And so we're really pleased that we have the ability to sustain funding for our partners so that we can continue to build and strengthen this multiracial, multicultural network of community-based organizations that is really critical, not just to responding to hate. It's important, not just responding to hate, but actually to building the bonds of solidarity that will help us resist the tendency for us to be pitted against one another, to be, to recognize that we want to come out in support of other organizations, not just when it happens to our own community, but when it happens to any community, to come together and respond to that. So that's something that we really believe with our community-based organization partnership. We're going to see more of that in our communities, and it will just build over time, because obviously this is a massive community, and what happens in Antelope Valley isn't going to be responded to in the same way if it happens in South LA. And so we really want to make sure that we build a capacity in all parts of the county where hate is being experienced. And the truth is, unfortunately, some of those places that have less of a history and less of an infrastructure of civil rights organizations are the ones that often experience the greatest amount of hate, or at least hate that gets unaddressed.
Robin Toma is Executive Director of the LA County Commission on Human Relations. Karen Mack, founder of LA Commons, continuing the conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
UC academics picket campuses in the largest strike of the year. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Around 48,000 academic workers at all 10 UC campuses went on strike mid-November, shutting down classrooms and research labs in the largest employee walkout at any academic institution in history. The postdoctoral scholars, teaching assistants and associate instructors, grad student researchers, and academic researchers are represented by the United Auto Workers Union in contract negotiations with the UC system. Bargaining has been going on for months, and while UC officials recently called for third-party mediators, negotiations continue without one. Generally, students are supportive, although some classes have been canceled, and students are reported to be walking out in honor of their educators.
You're the victim of a car accident. Who goes to bat for you is crucial. We're MVP Accident Attorneys, the personal injury pros. Hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. When it comes to getting the maximum compensation you deserve, our team hits it out of the park. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for a free case review. Call 833-MVP-WINS.
Call on me, your MVP.
Over 100 million people around the world have felt the thrill of Broadway's most spectacular musical, Disney's The Lion King. And now you can too. Experience this breathtaking theatrical event and see why the New York Times declares there is simply nothing else like it.
Give the gift that roars at the Pantages Theater, February 2nd through March 26th. Visit BroadwayInHollywood.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, look, if you're thinking about coming to South Africa and Zimbabwe with me and the folks from African Focus on the African Focus Trailblazers Tour 2023, June of 2023, it's filling up, so you might want to think about it now. We've got a meeting on Saturday, December 3rd. It's on Zoom. If you want info, call 310-676-7300, 310-676-7300, or visit AfricanFocus.org. Talking with Robin Toma, Executive Director of the LA County Commission on Human Relations, and Karen Mack, founder of LA Commons. And Karen, one of the things you do is about using arts or working with arts and culture to make change. And I was raised with that concept. My dad, Amiri Baraka, was a big believer in that. So talk to me about the cultural piece and what role that plays in overcoming hate and the work of the commission and your organization.
Yeah, I just really want to commend Robin and the commission because we go way back really thinking about these issues, and the fact that it's such an essential part of LA versus hate is really significant. When I was starting LA Commons, I really was thinking about this idea of social capital, which are the bonds of trust between people. And I got to study with a guy named Robert Putnam, who really was focused on social capital and the importance of it in a democracy. And we can see that, as these bonds are frayed, and Putnam actually looked at the arts as one important tool, and what the arts are powerful at is providing this window into the other, so that people develop a sense of compassion from this emotional experience. And even more powerfully, and this is at the core of our work, is creating the opportunity for interaction. That's where trust is built. That's where people get to know each other, and those stereotypes are broken down, and the foundation for sort of understanding, and projecting out to the larger, so that the white person who interacts with the black person sees that, this isn't a criminal. This is, a person who's just like me. We just have different skin color. And so, my feeling is we need to use culture as a vehicle for, really changing the narrative, helping people to really see beyond, these stereotypes, and to have that interaction, to be exposed to the stories that really counter this problematic narrative that is so much a part of, what we see on a day-to-day basis. And, I know that through LA versus Hate, one of our projects, for example, we're working with a team of young people to do a poster series in Watts that is focused on anti-hate messaging. So these young people are, will be messengers to the rest of the community, both visually and in their person, to really move that agenda forward. And so, the more that we can support the arts in this challenge that we have to lift up diverse voices, to bring people together to have conversations, and to, in writ large, if we think about, culture, pop culture, etc., and really bringing diverse voices into that mix is very important.
You want to give a short weigh in on that, Robin, Toma, just real quickly here, because as usual, time flies when you're on the radio. The role of culture in what you're doing.
Yes, thank you. Karen, as Karen was saying, it's so important to us to think about how we not just address and provide mechanisms for people to report hate and act on it, but it's changing culture. And culture is a powerful tool, and that's why our whole campaign is actually very much arts-based. If you look at our laversushate.org website, you'll see so many different designs from different communities that reflect the diversity of messaging and identities that exist here in LA County. And what Karen's talking about and the work of LA Commons is so important, because it's the kind of it's the way that we help to bridge connections where oftentimes there are such diverse identities and experiences, but there's a common language and a common connection around arts, music, and so many other things. So that's why we've actually had a number of different arts interventions, is what we call them, all around the county, including one in South LA at a place where a train station where blacks had to use in order to board trains and couldn't go to downtown LA. And it became really we're reclaiming that space as being a place where we own it and really put a mural there that speaks to the anti-hate message and the multiracial unity that we want to see here in LA County. We know exists, really. It needs to be more expressed and more promoted than it currently is. And we're doing that all around the county with all sorts of different arts projects. We would love to, expand that more, because I totally agree with Karen, and I'm excited about the state proposition passing. We have more resources to do that. We're going to see much more engagement of communities. We had young people coming together, both Black and Asian, particularly around the Black-Asian collaborative this past summer, in order to do a mural in South LA that would help to memorialize that. But it's really the process that they...
Okay, when we come forward, we'll have just a couple minutes before we hand off the mic to Tavis Smiley. So I want to get some just final thoughts. What you want to leave us with this morning, Karen Mack and Robin Toma on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week, LA County Department of Children and Family Services. LA County Department of Children and Family Services promotes child safety and well-being by partnering with communities to strengthen family. Congratulations, LA County DCFS.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
It's pro time because at Lowe's, it's Provember. Save big with inventory you can count on, like Flex products or DeWalt power tools starting at just $99. Plus, Lowe's MVPs members earn up to 3 times bonus points per dollar on select items. Save all Provember long. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. MVP's Pro Rewards Program. Terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/L/Pro Loyalty Terms. Subject to change. Prices valid from 10/17/22 to 2/3/23 or until supplies last.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Man, time really does fly when you're talking about important things. We just got a couple minutes before we go to Tavis Smiley. Excuse me, Robin. Your last comment.
I just would want to thank you so much, Dominique, for giving us the opportunity to be on your show. I really feel this is a hugely important question for us as a community of how we really shift our culture and move to a place where we can express and engage in the solidarity that we feel between our different targeted communities and knowing our common experiences. And I really do believe that folks should reach out to not only LA Commons and our commission, but also Brotherhood Crusade is a funded partner of ours in our LA versus hate work and many others. So hoping that we continue to engage with community and really work with everyone to show the amount of hate that's really going on in our world and to act on it.
Absolutely. LAversushate.org or call 211 to report a hate crime. Karen, just a few seconds here, actually.
Thank you for having the conversation about anti-Blackness. And, it's really up to all of us as citizens to, come together to push back against the hate. So I really want to encourage people, as I was so encouraged at City Council after that unfortunate recording was released, everyone came together to push back. That's got to be our norm. And so I look forward to, connecting and, pushing back and bringing the love. That's what we want.
Karen Mack and Robin Toma, thank you so much. It's time for Tavis Smiley's show. Until next time, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Glad you could join us this morning. I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network